Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about Mesopotamia in Total War Pharaoh Dynasties. And in this video, I am going to talk about the ancient legacies that are available in Mesopotamia and how they play out. I've already done a video talking about Mesopotamia in general, and I did touch on the subject of the ancient legacies, but having played with them some more, I have some better opinions on this. You do have two ancient legacies. One is Sargon, the other one is the Lawmaker. Hammurabi, the Lawmaker, over here. Now, the way the Lawmaker works leads me to the conclusion that it is a really powerful ancient legacy, because you do have a significant number of benefits that can help you out in quite a few ways, especially if you're playing on vanilla settings where your campaign progress is going to be slower, and in particular your research is going to be slower than you might expect. So first off, let's talk about the resource that you use for the Lawmaker, which is Kuduro. The way you gain Kuduro is through two principal ways. One, you can get some ambitions that give you Kuduro. So in this particular case, if I construct a resource type building that's producing gold, so for instance, once I build up gold mine over here in this particular region, in this particular province, I will get 8 Kuduro. But these kind of ambitions don't happen all that often. The main way you get Kuduro, which is the principal resource you're using for this ancient legacy, is by discussing the law in court. So what you'll be doing a lot if you're going with this particular ancient legacy is you'll be using assist or gossip, and then you'll be using the discuss law ability, which makes it, by the way, a better choice to go for the Assyrian faction as opposed to Babylon, though you might have the impression that Babylon is really good with it, but in reality it is the Assyrians that are really good at it, because they get those extra court actions every couple of turns. And they start with that position. Sure, you could always take that court position, but they can be a major ally, so it's not really useful. So having those extra actions as Assyria could really help you out in terms of making this work. So that is important. That is the principal way of gaining Kuduro in a campaign. Discussing the law over and over again. It has a 1-turn cooldown. You also, quite crucially on this subject, you also need to leave court positions outside of your control if you're going with this particular legacy, because otherwise you're not going to earn Kuduros. Sure, you can always give it to an ally, so it's not really too big of a problem. But just bear that aspect in mind. If you want to get Kuduro, you're mainly going to be relying on using those court actions. There's a significant downside, because it means you're not going to have court actions for other things in a campaign, which isn't particularly great. But this is what I mean about the Syria being better for it, or the principal Assyrian faction being better for it, because those extra free court actions that they get are going to help them out in terms of getting a lot of Kuduro in their campaign from very, very early on. What do you do with Kuduro, and how do you play this particular legacy? Well, looking at the situation, you can spend Kuduro on something that can help you out very early on. You can spend Kuduro on instantly completing research in your campaign. It does take 4 Kuduro. It does take 4 Kuduro over here, or you can use 4 Kuduro or 2 Kuduro per turn of research. So the longer it takes to complete the research, the more Kuduro it is going to take. So that is something that is kind of important to understand about all of this. Like over here, I could spend 12 Kuduro to unlock this one instantly, or I can use 10 over here to unlock it. It is pretty useful. Keep that in mind. It can be exceptionally useful in certain situations to be able to unlock research very, very quickly in a campaign. So that is useful with respect to Kuduro. And it is probably the one early game benefit you are going to get from this ancient legacy, because you can create laws. There is, however, a significant downside with creating laws. You can only revoke laws if your faction leader changes, and you can only revoke 3 laws. There's 9 in total laws that you can get. You have civic laws and you have military laws. Now over here I focused quite very heavily on the civic side of things as opposed to the military side of things. Now, what you use Kuduro for is to unlock higher tiers. So in order to get the best laws, to have certain effects like, gaining bronze per vassal or other things, then you are going to need to get this. So for instance, like let's say, I wanted to get a bunch of bronze per vassal, then I would need to get a lot of upgrades over there. But it can be really, really powerful, because consider this idea, right? Getting 30 wood per vassal. That is very significant, especially later on in a campaign. So over here, I would be looking at getting 90 wood or 120 stone per vassal if I were to upgrade that. That is very powerful, but it does require you to gain a lot of Kuduro in the first place. And the downside that's going to exist with this is, in order to get the highest possible the highest possible benefit over here, you are going to need to get higher tiers. So there's civic tiers, there's military tiers. So for instance, if I want to get food per vassal plus 50, which by the way is something you should never do, like getting wood or stone, one thing, gold, extraordinarily powerful, bronze, very powerful, food, I would not bother with that, right? There are arguments, of course, to be made in favor of, increasing food income, or or getting all kinds of benefits over here. You can put free effects in a law, but here's the downside. The more effects you have, the higher their tier, the longer it's going to take to get that law passed. So for instance, let's say I wanted to get 10% bronze income faction-wide, stone per vassal plus 40. That would take 18 turns. So in order to balance that, you do need to put, generally speaking, some kind of negative effect, or you could go with 2 negative effects if you wanted to. So for instance, let's say, I don't really care too much about like one-handed clubs, right? Let's say that. Or two-handed spearmen, I don't care that. So I could genuinely get a law over here in 3 turns that would give me 10% bronze, or I could get wood per vassal plus 30 would take 3 turns. But you are going to make some sacrifice. And I think this is the way that the system is intended to be used. If you could revoke laws on a certain cooldown, I think that system would be better. But it does take time to get really the system working, and you probably wouldn't really want to go as far as I have over here. So you realistically, you might want to combine certain benefits over here. Let's say, I want to get, let's go with the idea that I want to get an upkeep benefit for slingers, right? Minus 4%. Or, go all the way, 15 turns. The problem here is it takes way too long. But this is, I think, the intent of this is to prevent you from just being able to abuse the crap out of it to become really powerful with no kind of downsides whatsoever. That's fine, but the difference between like a law with 2 negative effects and one with 2 positive effects can be significant. On the flip side, you can get a whole bunch of benefits over here. Looking at the benefits, you can get all kinds of economic benefits during collapse, during crisis, per vassal. For construction, you have construction time, which is ridiculous, though it does require a very high level. And then you can get workforce cost reduction as well for these kind of things. So if you want to, lower workforce cost, sure, right? It might not necessarily be the best benefit in the world, but there are things you can trade. Like, let's say, we trade away a bunch of influence for max level settlements, or we go for, happiness for a pillar of civilization. There's a lot of things you can trade over here to get some very, very significant benefits. Now, looking at the overall benefits in total over here, so resource, construction cost for all kinds of buildings over here. So let's say, I want resources to cost less, right? I can lower that cost by 8%, for instance, as an example. More importantly, we can lower the cost of things like landmarks. We can lower the cost of things like administration, that kind of stuff. It can add up to a very significant benefit. So we also get recruitment cost benefits and upkeep benefits. it's always about these kind of trade-offs. But in the long term, especially if you're playing mortal faction leaders, so you can revoke some of these laws that you passed earlier on, may not necessarily be as powerful, you can get a lot of benefits. Then you have happiness, influence, workforce growth, and diplomatic relations, though that does require a higher level than I currently have. In terms of military benefits, though keep in mind I haven't really unlocked things, but you do get all kinds of benefits over here in terms of stats. So you want some of the best archers in the game, like, yeah, improve their missile damage by 10 freaking percent. Or you want to get 16% ammunition. People talk about like SETI, for instance, as a god that really benefits your archers. Well, forget that. Just go with this ancient legacy. You may end up genuinely having the strongest armies in the game, the strongest economy in the game, the most experience per battle, as well as various other benefits over here. So you can get things like, you know, resistant to heat, discipline, high vanguard deployment, unspottable, etc., etc., etc. All these kind of benefits. And then you have things like heatless charger, which is not... I'm not sure I would want that. I really don't know if I would want that. I don't think it would be... It's really a benefit. But you can get stamina regeneration, sand scorpions to stock, if weather is a sandstorm, mistwalker, aspire, so melee defense, melee attack, and the underdog. So there's all kinds of benefits. I would focus more on the civic side early on, because it's more important to buff your economy early on in a campaign as opposed to your units. Buffing your units more of a long-term benefit, because early on you just want to get the capability of recruiting as many high-tier units as possible. Upgrading them is a more long-term project. So my conclusion in respect to this ancient legacy is powerful. It does work. It does give you benefits to research, etc. Because like once you get, you know, once you have upgraded everything over here, right? Like what is it, 20 levels? Once you've upgraded everything over here, in terms of like the kind of benefits that you have available, you don't have anything to spend that Kuduro on. And if you're playing Assyria, you can get a lot of benefits. Truth be told, you could probably just aim for getting that particular position for yourself, if you really want to do. Though there is a bit of a downside with respect to actually having the core position over here, because you do need to control... you do need to control a particular region for these kind of positions. Like you need to control Babylon or Assyria or Elam in order to get these core positions. So I feel like this could work better in certain other courts where you have more flexibility in terms of like getting that position for extra court actions. That could be really, really useful. Or if you're, say, playing Amon Mes, consider this situation. Think of this. Amon Mes, who can use gold to get extra court actions, has a lot of gold. You could get so much Kuduro with him. Those are just some examples. So the possibilities here are very significant. I would say this. In terms of a long campaign benefit, this is probably the strongest ancient legacy in the game, by far. In terms of an early game benefit, the merchant is still better. A 10 is probably better in that middle ground. I've talked about the 10, all that. But the downside, it's pretty fucking dull. I'm not going to lie about it. Like, it just feels like, oh, I have another research tree that I have to worry about. Can work well, can be really powerful, but I'm not particularly enthusiastic about using it. Right? Even if you do get a lot of Kuduro in actions, it's like you're just getting stat benefits. And it's like one of the complaints about the research tree is that it's just gaining stats and not particularly great. So, powerful, undeniably so, but kind of just feels like getting a second research tree. Final thing before moving on is that one of the things you do have available is you can make a law divine. You can make a law more powerful over here by using the word of the gods. So you make a divine law, boosting the effect and gaining victory points, but you lose the ability of being able to revoke that particular law. But over here you can see it would buff my construction cost, my food generation, and even turn that negative rating income into a positive. So that's one of the things to consider over here. Though that does cost Kuduro to make into a divine law. Quite a lot of it, in point of fact. I would probably focus more on getting the research done. Once I find research, yeah, probably go for it. Would highly recommend it for a faction that has a core position by default that can give them those extra court actions. Those are not available in every court, just keep that in mind. But certainly the benefits are there. Now, the second Mesopotamian ancient legacy is Sargon the Great, which is focused on ambitions, and grand ambitions as well. Here's how this works. You have various meters over here, and you have 2 slots over here that can generate an ambition. Now, these are normal ambitions for the most part, right? Different kinds of things that you would want to go for. Like, there's an ambition over here, like construct a resource type producing stone, for instance. But this goes way further. Beyond the fact that you're generating a lot more objectives than a regular campaign, you can also extend the duration of an ambition by several turns. So that can be really useful. Now, beyond this particular aspect, you do have a cooldown on generating regular ambitions, and grand ambitions only get generated once you reach a certain threshold. So you have various tiers over here. Once you complete 1 tier, I believe, you do gain various grand ambitions in your particular campaign. And these will also give you benefits. So the more ambitions you do of a particular type, conqueror, warlike, builder, the more you're going to fill up this meter, the more grand ambitions you're going to get, the more benefits you're going to get. So let's take a look at this situation. So ambitions, normal what you have. Grand ambitions do have more difficult objectives potentially over here. So, for instance, I have the weight of royalty, which is have 40 outposts established across your domain. Very, very easy. But beyond the fact that you're getting a lot of these kind of benefits, and you're getting, resources, victory points, and, potentially some other benefits, diplomatic benefits, that kind of stuff. Beyond that, you're also getting faction-wide benefits with these filling up these meters. So, for instance, we have for the overall meter, it's just gonna give you a title. It's gonna unlock the selection of a grand ambition, so you get various selections of grand ambition, and increase dark type slots for Ancient Legacy Sargon. Okay, fair enough, right? Pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. But the different types of ambitions, those give you faction-wide benefits. So, for instance, the Conqueror gives you up to free workforce on settlement occupation, plus free beyond the 2 you already gain when you just take a settlement, and then plus 10 happiness in last conquered settlement in province. Very significant. At tier 1, it's only 1 workforce. At tier 2, workforce plus 2. But at tier 3, you're looking at 10 happiness. For Warlock, you have 2% molecular lethality, 2% range lethality. That goes into 4%. And then finally into 6%, as well as 6% morale. But it's only for bodyguards, unfortunately. It would be nice if it was for more different units, but you do get that bodyguard benefit. Then you do have, so that's a workforce, benefit on occupation. The builder gives you a construction cost, if we look at it, construction cost, and an increased construction limit for Monument of Greatness faction-wide. This is actually a very significant benefit. You do get minus 20% construction cost, increased construction limit of Monument of Greatness, and final one, reduces the workforce cost, it reduces the construction cost by 40%. Jeez, maybe you really should go for a builder, because high-tier buildings are very, very expensive. And then increasing construction limit plus free of Monument of Greatness. So what is a Monument of Greatness? Yes, this is in a campaign I've been playing as Achilles. So if we look at this is a Monument of Greatness. This gives you legitimacy, happiness, influence, victory points, building gold upkeep. But there is a limit of only 1. It's not necessarily the most beneficial building to worry about, though 5 victory points is not something to sneeze at. Like if I look at my campaign objectives, victory objectives right here, I'm 69, I need 160. So being able to build a bunch of these things, very, very damn useful. Undeniably so. But more importantly, no joke on this, more importantly, reducing construction cost by 40%, pretty big freaking deal. Because if we look at the buildings that we can construct here, this building is 4,000 freaking gold, 1,000 wood, right? The various things as well, like, tier 5 barracks, 954 stone, all that over there. And if I do have another settlement that's lower tier, maybe I can demonstrate that if I do actually find a lower tier settlement. That might be a bit tricky. Yeah, I'll just cancel this because, I do have saves over here. So if we look over here, 150 gold, 25 wood, 880 so. This will save you so many resources in a campaign, and it's not even funny. And here's the thing about that. Here's the really important thing about that. It's not that it's just saving resources. It's also giving you the flexibility of trading extra stone, extra wood, especially gold, for things like bronze and food, which you need for more troops. So this is really, from a practical standpoint, such a significant economic benefit because it's going to allow you to maintain more armies, give you a lot of benefits. So if you're playing Sargon, you may want to go down the builder path. Like, forget the conqueror, though. Okay, warlock, not really useful, not going to lie. Though morale is certainly nice. But the conqueror benefit and the builder benefit especially, very, very significant. So every 3 turns, you can generate a new ambition. You can have multiple ambitions at the same time. But not only that, so you're generating a lot of resources for those ambitions, and then you're saving a lot of resources through the various benefits you get long term. This makes you a freaking economic powerhouse in a campaign. So out of the two ancient legacies of Mesopotamia, I would absolutely go with Sargon. By the way, it's also more fun because it gives you various objectives to do. Though some of those can feel pretty lame in some ways, like, maintain 100 units or 80 units or something like that. That's not particularly great. But at least it gives you an objective-focused campaign, which is one of the main things that makes Malachi's campaign so great in Warhammer 3. It's not quite on that level, but at least it gives you other things to do than you normally would. And that is great. Certainly would play this legacy as any faction and really have a lot of fun with it. Costin, signing out.